Let's start with what are your thoughts on the availability reports you guys are going to be putting out?
Yeah, I don't even know enough about it to probably comment. So, I feel like we've always tried to do right. Whatever that looks like, we'll comply with whatever. I don't know enough about it. Kind of Matt talked to me a little bit about it this morning, but I think that's good. It sounds like that's what college football is getting to. So, we'll roll with it.
Then I'll ask another question you won't be able to answer. Do you hope, imagine, or that this is going to be the truth, or do you think there's going to be gamesmanship that historically we've seen from college football coaches, not to name names?
Yeah, I mean, I think the reality of that is, we'll see where it goes. To me, what's the clarity of the rules? What's the clarity of happening? And you just navigate that process. I would certainly hope that whatever reasoning, I know sports gambling, all those kind of things are behind it. And if it protects our student athletes, then I'm all for it.
Where do you feel like you guys are now, 9 days out?
Yeah, like I said, I felt like last time we talked, I really felt very positive about the camp that we've had. And I still feel really good about it. I thought we had a great week to finish last week. We had about maybe 124, 125 play scrimmage last Friday. Man, we had really great competitive reps, and through that, I thought we had a great start to this week. And all those things is still the unknown, right? I mean, we've got this football team that there's a lot of guys that played, a lot of guys that got new roles, and you've heard me say this, Travis, a million times. Like, until the lights come on, until you're playing for something, it's still really hard to know where your football team is and really where you're at. But the competitive spirit of this group through the consistency of camp and really since the winter, I've really appreciated how they've worked.
Matt, in 9 days, you kick off the season, and the eyes of the college football world will be on you and your program. What kind of opportunity is this?
I think that's a great point. I think the one thing is, as uniquely challenging as this opportunity is, the word opportunity is right. And I think both programs, both teams, college football, the opportunity to take your program, over to Ireland, what a great experience for the fan bases, the universities, the schools. And to play in this kind of setting, I still think it's really special. And I'm really grateful to be a part of that. I think our kids feel that way. You're obviously playing a tremendous opponent that you have the utmost respect for on top of it. And, man, you get to play in a very iconic game. So I think all those things are really exciting, and we don't take that for granted.
Coach, what does the rivalry with K-State mean to you and your program?
Well, I think when there's respect, especially within a rivalry, you're just grateful to be a part of something like that. We're really fortunate here that we have been able to get our program to a place where we can play really meaningful rivalry games, and this certainly is one of them. Traditionally, what K-State has done in this conference, the type of opponent they are, the success that they've had, when you get the opportunity to measure yourself as a football program and where you are and where you're continuing to grow forward, those are powerful things. And I think that it's been a really awesome opportunity to be now going in my 10th year to be a part of this game. And certainly this opportunity. So, again, we don't take this for granted. We know this is what makes college football really special.
What's the challenge of playing a team that has a really elite and established front seven so early on in a season?
Yeah, I think just across the board, what is playing a really, really talented opponent right out the gate. And to me, the challenge is no matter what, A, it's a first game, then B, it's a really good football team. It's going to really measure kind of a little bit of your toughness. Where is that at? Number two, your discipline as a football program. The reality of it is any first game, like how you take care of the ball, how you tackle, how you block, all those fundamentals that you've worked on since January. Where are those things at? And then I think the last piece of it is a little bit of like togetherness. I can promise you it's not going to go perfect. There's going to be swings of momentum and adversity in this football game. Where are you at? Where are we at? Where's the leadership of this team at? And those are all great unknowns for every team in America going into game one. But when you play obviously such a worthy opponent that all those things are going to get tested, it's a great challenge. But like I said, it's also a great opportunity to measure ourselves.
We talked with Coach Haycock this week about the holistic nature of what it takes to create a sack and your secondary covering guys long enough. And I was just looking at the Big 12 last year. The top 5 defenses in terms of points weren't top 5, any of them, in terms of sacks. Is that something that's maybe become a little bit like devalued or change the importance of in college football?
Yeah, I don't know if it's devalued. I think sometimes that's skewed, right? I mean, the reality is what's important. Nobody's looking at the end of the year who's the sack leaders, right? I mean, they were looking at who wins and loses football games. And, I think points scored in a game is certainly a more worthy, measurable statistic than sacks in a football game. Now, as you say that, do we want to pressure the quarterback? Do we want to have the ability to create those plays? Certainly those plays are big play opportunities for the defense. And when those get made, I think they certainly contribute to winning. But is that the stat that you're looking for that defines success? And I would tell you no. And again, there's times where a tip ball, man, great coverage and a third down, get off the field because you were able to keep the quarterback contained. All those things got to be looked at, especially in a conference like ours. You play so many mobile quarterbacks, so many quarterbacks that can run. Sometimes, playing good pass defense isn't getting a sack because you're so concentrated on getting a sack. You don't have great coverage lanes in terms of how you're rushing the quarterback and all those things. So I think every game's a little bit different. Every situation's a little bit different. I think sacks sometimes become a lot more situational than they are in terms of just, that go-to statistic that you're looking for. Is that defense successful? What's their stats on sacks? Now, sometimes individual players, you have to be aware of that statistic. We had a guy like that, right? Will McDonald, who was, you had to have great awareness where that individual player was because he could wreck a pass protection play on any moment. So I think probably sometimes more individual statistics are more important when you talk about stats, like sacks.
Where are you guys at with your return game, both in the punt and the kick game? Obviously, Xavier Townsend did that in his past at UCF, but beyond him, where are you guys at in that area?
Yeah, I mean, again, you got a lot of guys that have done that. Kick return, for us, from Abu Sama did it in high school. Aiden Flora did it in high school. I think Xavier Townsend was terrific at it at Central Florida. From the punt return game, you said it, and kind of really those guys have had those same opportunities. So, I think we feel very good about it, but, until you get out there in the lights, until Xavier gets the opportunity to do that at times with our return game, just communication, I think all those things, certainly when you don't have a guy like Jalen Knoll back there who was, had done it for 3 years, and a guy that you felt really confident in. Even if you look at Jalen's progression, he was like a solid punt returner as a sophomore. He was good as a junior, and he was really special as a senior. So, I think those are things that are a little bit progression, but it's huge to have a guy like Xavier that's done that, has been truly successful at it. But I think putting that all together under how we do it, we'll find out a lot more about ourselves here soon.
How much do you feel like Jalen's ability to impact the game in the punt and the kick return helped you guys win games last season?
Yeah, I think if you look at it statistically, especially in the punt return game, I thought just his confidence and his ability to not let the ball roll around, his communication back there, let alone his ability to, gain an extra first down or two at times, and, in terms of, the punt and the ability to expand the play to help the offense out. I think those are all huge things. So, I definitely think it was a huge help to our football team a year ago.
Matt, what do the next 9 days look like in terms of preparation for you and your team? Are there still scrimmages left? Are there still position battles to work through? Where exactly do you guys stand?
Yeah, we won't have any more scrimmages. Now, we'll probably get some good-on-good reps. We did today in practice, and I think you have to going into the early part of the season. I think there's got to be consistency of getting good-on-good football. And, position battles, I know I've said this a lot with this team. I think, whatever we put out, whatever, depth chart, it's really hard right now, and I still think until we get to this first bye week, we're going to have a lot of competition for who's the starter, who's in critical moments. I think all those things are going to kind of sort itself out early in the football season. And the great thing is you go to practice every day. I think that the value of practice, we may not even know who starts at a couple positions until what we see, what's the product of practice this week going into, game one. So I think that's the thing that's probably exciting, a little bit nerve-wracking, but the reality of it is I think more exciting for us because I think it shows that we've got some depth and got some guys that are really competing. And until we get out on that field and see what we are and where we're at, I think guys will start to separate themselves as real game reps kind of come into play as well.
And with James Neal, what are your thoughts on the way he handled last year being bounced around, and how has he grown since then?
Yeah, James, I'm glad you asked that. He just spoke 2 nights ago in our team meeting, and it was his senior speech to the football team. And geez, my introduction to James was one of just, a lot of pride from my end. The word that I think that he had was confidence. And one of the things that was super impressive to me about what I watched James do is he's earned the right to be a really confident football player. I would say he'd probably be one of the wow guys from spring to what he did in summer to what he really did through fall camp. He's had a really, really special offseason and a really special fall camp. And I still believe, we live in a world that there's a lot of hype and there's a lot of BS in terms of are you good, are you not? But our sport, there's only one way to be good is you got to earn it. And that's the great thing about our sport. Like, you still have to earn the right to be confident and proud. And the reality of what I've watched James do is he's earned it. And, I think what I saw, and Matt would know this better, I think he's had 20 starts here. So, James still played a lot of football last year. He was a great team player for the betterment of the football team. He never, not one time did he come to my office and say, man, coach, why is this going on? Or never complained, never made an excuse, just tried to find ways to get better. I think what James, even learned a little bit from Jalen a year ago, Jalen had a little bit of more season. Jalen played football in high school. Jalen played football for 4 years and had to be a starter. I think he just had a little bit more experience. I think some of the wisdom that Jalen helped James have was awesome. And I think the product is you're getting, in my opinion, one of the best linemen I've seen that we've had, and maybe since I've been here. I mean, he's had that good of camp. And so I'm really proud of him, and that doesn't mean it's all going to be perfect, but boy, I think this guy's got a chance to play football for a long time. He's worked really hard at it. Again, that's our sport, and sometimes we rob our sport of going through hard things and adversity, but man, James never flinched. He just went and got better, and you're talking about a guy that only played 1 year of high school football. So, he had a lot of growth to go, and probably maybe in hindsight, maybe the greatest thing that happened to him last year is, having to play tight end, having to play start games in guard, have to play multiple positions, because I think it's brought his football knowledge to a really special level, and I think it's given him a lot of confidence.
Building off of Alex's question about the return guys, how's the kicking game, punting game? I don't think we've asked you about that this off season yet. Is it still the same guys, or do you have a new kickoff guy, or how's that look?
I would hope it's the same. I mean, those guys were tremendous a year ago, and I mean, I think statistically our punter is the best in school history. Statistically, you had a phenomenal place kicker, and I thought Jace Gilbert was almost 74% touchback last year in terms of his kickoff rate. So I think our expectation of that group would be very high internally, and I thought those guys have all performed that way so far through fall camp. And what I love about all three of those guys, I mean, they're really motivated. They're all motivated to be the best. I think they all have elite traits and talent. And, we're going to need those guys to be at their best for us to be the best team, especially early on.
And you said there might be a couple of position battles that aren't solved until a game or 2, 3, whatever it is into the season. What are those positions, and who are the guys that you're evaluating there?
Yeah, I think there's just it's probably for me to go through the depth chart is hard just because there's so many of them. I think you look on the O-line, I think we feel like there's 7 to 8 guys that can really start. Who's the best combination to start the game? How many of those guys rotate in the football game? I think that part will be really fun to watch. I think tight end position, again, there's so many guys that are capable of playing. What's the best role for those guys within the offense? Who's the starters? Who's playing in crunch time? I think all those things will be fun to navigate. Obviously, a wide receiver, I think that group's been really probably a surprise to us of maybe where some of those guys are and kind of just how talented we think that group's got the ability to be. How do we design an offense to showcase those guys and kind of put those guys in position to be successful? We know the talent at running back. I think that group, who practices the best, who's the guy, where are we at? I think that's going to be really fun to watch kind of unfold itself. D-line, I think that's sorting itself. I know I talked about Tama a lot. I think he's had a phenomenal fall camp. I think Ike, those two guys have been like super impressive to where they were even at the start of fall camp to where those guys are now. And I think there's some depth behind those guys that I feel really good about where we're at. The linebacker, you guys know who the linebackers are. I mean, how do you sort that out, right? I mean, by practice and game reps, in terms of my, who's playing, who's in crunch time. The nice thing is we feel like there's 9 guys that can really go play great football for us. Corner has been really fun to watch. That group, I mean, man, what Benny's done in terms of the last couple of weeks, watching his growth at corner has been really awesome for us. Tez has had a great camp. And then safety, you got guys like Coop coming back. You certainly, Kaijon Cummings-Coleman has continued to do a great job. We talked about, Marcus Neal, what's going on there. J-Mo, those guys have all played good football. So I think that there's just a lot of competition for us to sit here and say, man, who, what, when, and where. I just think a lot of it, there's going to be a lot of guys playing early, and we're going to have to do a great job of kind of sorting it out on the run of who's playing the best, and in some critical moments, who are the right guys to be on the field.
For linebacker, with the numbers that you guys have, do you look at that as mixing and matching, or do you go hockey lines and?
Yeah, honestly, it's a great question. We talked about that a little bit on Saturday after the Friday night scrimmage. It's just what is the best way to do it? And, some of those guys have certain strengths that I feel like, type of flow of the game, where you're at, who you're playing. Maybe those strengths are a little bit better against this group, and some of these guys are maybe a little bit better against this group. But the reality of it is it's huge to have so many of those, even on special teams, right? I mean, the value that those 9 players bring to the table for us. I think early you're probably talking about rotating a lot of guys. Maybe it is the hockey change. But I think, as the game settles in and the games continue, I think finding the strengths of those guys and trying to do a great job putting those guys in the position of their strengths, I think that will certainly help our team. And you guys know this, man. We could be game 1 and you're down from 9 to 6 like that, and so we don't ever take any of that for granted. I think the reality is it'll all be kind of game to game and where we're at and what's going on. But I think we're certainly grateful that as tough as last year was at times the benefit is the experience and the confidence I feel like that group certainly has right now.
You talked a lot about how your concern with this trip isn't playing on that Saturday, but how you guys respond when you come back. Is the preparation for that concern already started, or is it on the back end when you guys?
No, I honestly, I think it started in fall camp. And I know I said this, Travis. I think like that started for me when we knew we were playing for this game. Before we even laid kind of out, how are we going to practice in spring ball? How are we going to practice in fall camp? Man, what are the things that you have to talk about in nutrition and sleep and all those things? And again, we're dealing with 18 to 22-year-old kids. Like, are we really driving those things home? Man, I hope so. But if you want to have the ability, at least we found the answers. Now you got to choose to make the right decisions and follow the right guidelines to give yourself the best chance and to handle it both on the front end and certainly then equally on the back end of it. So I think all of it has gone into planning, the how to. But again, doing it and executing it are 2 different things. I think we have a really good plan. I'm really proud of what the work that so many people did behind the scenes to prepare for it. But, the execution of it is really where you'll find success. And again, time will tell.
With K-State being your first opponent, have you sensed a different fire amongst your team with a rival opponent, a Big 12 opponent, a national spotlight game in the preseason as they enter your 10th year here?
Yeah, I that's a great question. I think certainly as we get into this game week, that will probably, rev itself up. The reality of it is if you don't worry about yourself, then you got real problems. And my number one focus, and I hope our kids' number one focus, has been really in the mirror. And we don't know what K-State's going to do. It's a first game. You got no idea. They got a new offensive coordinator. Man, they've played multiple defenses for the last 4 to 5 years. And so you're playing a first game, and I don't care who your opponent would be. There better be great focus on you. And, I think that it's easy to get caught up in all that. We certainly respect that, and we're certainly excited for the opportunity. But really, the focus has been internal. We've got a lot to prove to ourselves fundamentally. We got a lot to prove to ourselves on building this year's team. We've got a lot of questions we have to answer. And, no matter what they do or how they do it or what environment or what continent we're on or wherever we're at, we have to play a 60-minute football game, and the reality is the score will be a positive for us if we execute our details. And so, I think it's really tried to hone in on that. I think you have to at the start of every season. I don't know how you can go down that road, which makes the emotions of a rival game. And, one thing we've had to live that here, we live a rival game early in the season, and I always think that's a unique challenge because it's just different, right? It's different when you have to play it so early, and there's so much emotion and there's so much season left to play that you can get caught up and all of a sudden make a lot of mistakes, and those mistakes can be debilitating early. So, I think our focus has really been internal. Like I said, that's a lot of respect for who we're playing, but if we don't take care of Iowa State, we don't take care of who we are, our fundamentals, our detail, I think it's going to be really tough for us to have success early in the season.
In terms of meeting spaces and practice facilities available in Ireland, do you expect anything about your normal game day routine to change?
I know I don't. I think one of the positives for me is, last summer I got a chance to at least go over there and see the space for 2 or 3 days, personally kind of like go on the same 3-day trip that our players are about to go on. So it kind of gave me a great lay of the land. And my whole mission was how do we try to keep everything as normal as we possibly can. Now, I don't know if it's normal not sleeping overnight on a plane and then getting up on Thursday when you get there and it's Thursday morning and going to practice, but I think we prepare for that. How do you try to sleep best on the plane? How do you get up there Thursday? But I think facility-wise, food-wise, obviously Skip and, our nutrition team, they've went over, they got that same experience, and I think they've done an incredible job. I mean, tireless work, a lot of effort has gone into it, and I really appreciate what they've done to kind of give us a platform to get over there and try to get into normalcy as fast as we possibly can. Yeah, asking for me, no. So I hopefully for our players, probably a lot of melatonin and good luck at it. You know what I mean? So yeah.